The Christmas party was filled with lights and laughter, but beneath the joy, tension lingered. Then, everything changed. When my innocent daughter refused to wear the tattered, old clothes, my ruthless mother-in-law struck her so hard that she stumbled back, crashing into the wall. As she struggled to regain her balance, what happened next was even more terrifying. My name is Nina, and I am 32 years old. Looking back, I wonder why I tolerated so much for so long. Maybe it was love, or maybe it was the hope that things would get better. But now I know better. This is the story of how I finally found the strength to break free, how I fought for my daughter, Nora, and my family's future. The bells of St. Peter's Cathedral echoed through the crisp morning air as I carefully lifted the hem of my white wedding dress, climbing the stone steps one by one. Though it was early March, the winter chill still lingered in Ravensfield, and my cheeks burned from the cold. Just as I reached the grand entrance, a sharp voice cut through the air. "You're marrying my son in such a cheap dress?" I froze. The voice belonged to Diana, my soon-to-be mother-in-law. Dressed in a deep blue gown from an expensive boutique, she stood at the top of the stairs, her cold eyes scanning me up and down like I was a piece of merchandise she was unwilling to buy. I swallowed hard. I knew my dress wasn't extravagant. It was simple and off the rack, something I had carefully saved for as a nurse with a modest income. But hearing those words on my wedding day felt like a slap to the face. I forced a polite smile and said nothing. It was my wedding day. I refused to let her ruin it. The ceremony began. Liam and I exchanged our vows in the quiet elegance of the cathedral. Everything should have been perfect, but Diana's disapproving gaze never left me. I felt her judgment in every moment, as if she was silently reminding me that I would never be good enough for her son. After the ceremony, when it was time for the family photos, her true colors emerged once again. "Let's take some family shots without Nina first," she instructed the photographer, deliberately pushing me to the side. I stood there in stunned silence as she gathered Liam, his father Thomas, and his sister Julia for several pictures. I wasn't included in most of them. Liam must have noticed, but he never confronted his mother. "That's just Mom's way of showing she cares," he would say, brushing it off. I should have seen it then, the warning signs. But love makes you blind, and I was no exception. 3 years passed. My marriage to Liam had its challenges, but I had convinced myself that Diana's disapproval was something I could endure. After all, she wasn't part of our daily lives. But what I didn't realize was that her presence loomed over us like a shadow, influencing Liam in ways I hadn't fully understood yet. Liam and I had been trying for a baby for years, but infertility crushed that dream. After countless tests, doctor visits, and heartbreaking disappointments, I finally made peace with it. Instead of dwelling on what I couldn't have, I chose to embrace what was possible: adoption. That's when I met Nora. I had been volunteering at an orphanage, offering medical checkups for the children when I saw her. She was just 5 years old, sitting quietly in the corner, drawing on a torn piece of paper. Something about her delicate features and deep, thoughtful eyes pulled at my heart. The moment our eyes met, I felt something unexplainable, like fate had brought us together. By the time Liam and I finalized the adoption process, I was convinced that Nora was meant to be ours. But what I hadn't anticipated was how this decision would ignite a new war with Diana. The first time I told Diana that we were adopting, she let out a sharp breath, her face tightening. "A child with no blood ties?" she scoffed. She didn't even pretend to be happy for us. Instead of congratulations, she made her true feelings brutally clear. When Nora officially became our daughter, we sent out a birth announcement to close family and friends. While others sent warm wishes, Diana didn't even show up at the hospital to meet her granddaughter. Instead, she sent a short, cold message. "Use Grace as her middle name." It was my mother's name. It wasn't a suggestion, it was a demand. I remember sitting in silence, the phone in my hand, my chest aching. I wanted to refuse. Why should I let a woman who clearly didn't accept my daughter dictate something so personal? But then Liam placed a hand on mine and said, "Please, Nina, just consider Mom's feelings." And that was the first time I compromised. I swallowed my pride, pushed back my anger, and agreed. Nora Grace. That was the first time I gave in for the sake of keeping peace. But it wouldn't be the last. Diana continued to exclude Nora in every possible way. She deliberately scheduled family events on different days from Nora's birthday, making it impossible for us to celebrate with them. She removed pictures of Nora from family albums as if she didn't exist. At church gatherings, she ignored her entirely, treating her like an outsider. And worst of all, she started using a phrase that stung every time I heard it. Real family. She used it in conversations, in social gatherings, even in front of Nora. It wasn't subtle. It was a calculated way of reminding us that, to her, Nora would never be truly part of the family. Liam noticed. But every time, he chose silence over confrontation. It's just how she is, he would say. She doesn't mean any harm. But I knew better. It was only going to get worse. And I was right. That year, Diana hosted a grand Christmas party at her estate in Ravensfield. Her house, an enormous white mansion in an upscale neighborhood, was lavishly decorated with LED lights and a towering Christmas tree. Every detail screamed wealth and power. The invitation had read, "Let's celebrate Christmas as a whole family." I should have known better. That morning, Nora was filled with excitement. She stood by the window, watching the snowfall, her little hands pressed against the glass. "Grandma's house will have wonderful presents, right?" she asked, her eyes shining with innocent hope. I felt a pang in my heart. I knew this night wouldn't be kind to her. Still, I nodded. Of course, sweetheart. I had taken extra care that evening, curling Nora's soft brown hair, tying it with her favorite ribbon, dressing her in a navy velvet dress. A small pearl brooch from my late mother added the final touch. "This belonged to my mother," I whispered to her. "I want you to wear it today." She smiled brightly, completely unaware of what awaited her. When we arrived, the scent of turkey and apple pie filled the air, and the living room sparkled with warm holiday lights. Family photos were neatly arranged above the fireplace. Wedding pictures, birthdays, last Thanksgiving. But not a single photo of me or Nora was in sight. As we all gathered around the Christmas tree, it was time to exchange gifts. Diana, dressed in an elegant scarlet cashmere sweater, sat in the center, passing out presents. She handed a large, beautifully wrapped box to Julia's daughter, Elena. "Open it, my angel," she said with warmth in her voice. Elena excitedly ripped open the box, revealing a designer dress from a luxury Parisian brand, deep crimson velvet with gold embroidery. Diana beamed with pure adoration. "Oh, how lovely. You can wear this to Christmas Mass." Meanwhile, Nora sat patiently, her small hands folded in her lap, waiting for her turn. Then, Diana turned to her. Without a smile, without a trace of warmth, she carelessly tossed a brown paper bag into Nora's lap. The room went silent. "Here," Diana said flatly. "Be grateful for what you get." Nora's small fingers trembled as she opened the bag. Inside were worn-out clothes. The hem was frayed, and there were small holes in the sleeves. They weren't just old. They were trash. Nora blinked, her breath shaky. "Grandma, why?" she whispered. Diana simply shrugged, her eyes gleaming with cruel satisfaction. I felt my entire body go cold with rage. "What is the meaning of this?" I asked, my voice shaking. Diana tilted her head, smirking. "Well, she's not real family. This is only natural." And that was the moment Nora refused to stay silent. "I don't want this," she whispered, pushing the bag away. Diana's expression darkened. Before I could react, before Liam could move, Diana's hand snapped forward. Smack! The sound shattered the room. Nora staggered back, her tiny hands clutching her burning cheek. And that was when Liam exploded in rage. "What the hell do you think you're doing, MOM?" Diana barely had time to react before Liam stormed forward, his voice filled with pure fury. For the first time, he wasn't silent. He was ready to burn every bridge to protect his family. The sharp sound of the slap echoed through the grand living room. Nora stumbled back, clutching her cheek, her wide eyes glistening with tears. For a moment, the entire room froze. No one moved. No one spoke. And then Liam exploded. "What the hell do you think you're doing, MOM?" His voice was like thunder, shaking the very air in the room. Every head turned toward him, stunned by the sheer rage in his voice, a voice I had never heard before. Diana, still standing over Nora with her hand half raised, blinked in shock. She was being disrespectful, she snapped, her voice sharp, but for the first time uncertain. Liam's entire body tensed with fury. His fists clenched, his breathing heavy. The Liam who had always excused his mother's cruelty was gone. "Disrespectful?" he hissed, his voice dangerously low. "She's a child, Mom. My child. And you just hit her." Diana scoffed, crossing her arms like she had done nothing wrong. "She needs discipline. You're too soft on her. That's why she thinks she can talk back." "Shut up." Diana flinched. Liam had never raised his voice at her before. "Let me make this very clear," he growled, stepping forward. "If you ever lay a hand on Nora again, I will make sure you suffer the consequences." "What are you talking about?" Diana laughed nervously, trying to regain control. "You wouldn't." Liam pulled out his phone, unlocking it with shaking hands. "I should be calling the police right now." Diana's smirk vanished. The weight of those words hit her like a stone wall. The room had gone dead silent. Even Thomas, her husband, looked down at the floor, his usual indifference cracking. "Child abuse, Mom," Liam continued, his voice cold as ice. "In front of multiple witnesses. In front of your own family. You think you can get away with this?" Diana's face turned pale. She took a small step back. "Liam, you're being dramatic," she whispered. "You wouldn't really. Try me." Liam's hand hovered over his phone screen, his thumb resting on the 911 dial button. For the first time in her life, Diana looked afraid. "Listen to me," Liam said, his voice steady and final. "I've spent my whole life excusing you, ignoring your cruelty. But that's over." He turned to look at me for the first time, truly seeing me. His eyes were filled with guilt, but also something stronger. Determination. "I choose my wife. I choose my daughter. And I choose to protect them from you." Diana's lips trembled, her hands balling into fists. "You're turning your back on your own mother?" she spat. "No," Liam corrected. It did that the moment you hit my child." Liam grabbed my hand and pulled me and Nora toward the door. "We're done with you." Diana watched in disbelief as Liam led us out of the house. "And if you ever come near Nora again," Liam said over his shoulder, "I'll make sure the law takes care of you." And with that, he slammed the door behind us. I gripped Nora's trembling hand as we stepped out of Diana's house. My heart was pounding, my mind racing. Liam's grip on my other hand was tight and unwavering, a silent promise that this time, he wasn't going to back down. As we walked toward the car, Nora's small voice broke the silence. "Mommy, was I bad?" My chest tightened with unbearable pain. I dropped to my knees in the snow, cupping her tear-streaked face gently. "No, baby," I whispered. "You did nothing wrong. Nothing at all." Her tiny hands clung to my coat, and I held her close, pressing a kiss to the top of her head. Behind me, I could hear Liam breathing heavily, trying to control his rage. "We're not letting this go," he finally said, his voice dark. "She thinks she can hit my daughter and walk away? Not a chance." I looked up at him, my hands still resting on Nora's small shoulders. "What are we going to do?" I asked. Liam's jaw clenched. He pulled out his phone and, without hesitation, dialed the police. I stared at him, my heart pounding. This was really happening. I had spent years watching him excuse his mother, brush things aside, keep the peace. But now he was ready to fight. The phone rang twice before an officer's voice came through. "Ravensfield Police Department. What's your emergency?" Liam's voice was steady, cold, and filled with purpose. "I need to report a case of child abuse. My mother assaulted my daughter." Liam's words hung in the cold night air as he spoke to the officer. "My mother assaulted my daughter." I saw the way his hands tightened around the phone, his knuckles turning white. This wasn't just anger, it was resolve. He was done protecting his mother. The officer on the other end asked for details, and Liam didn't hesitate. It happened just minutes ago at her home. There were multiple witnesses: my father, my sister, her daughter, and several other family members. She slapped my 5-year-old daughter across the face. I shivered, but not from the cold. Saying it out loud made it even more real. The officer asked if we wanted to press charges, and Liam's answer was immediate. Yes. A few moments later, the officer informed us that an officer would be sent to investigate immediately. We'll need statements from both parents and any witnesses available. Given that this involves a minor, Child Protective Services may also get involved. That was when reality truly set in. This wasn't going to be just an argument within the family. This was about to become a legal matter. For the first time in years, I saw something in Diana's future that she had never expected: real consequences. 15 minutes later, we were still parked outside, waiting for the police to arrive. Nora had fallen asleep in my arms, exhausted from crying. Liam had been pacing, his face still tight with anger. Then, suddenly, the front door of the house swung open. Diana stepped out, wrapped in a thick coat, her face twisted in anger and disbelief. "You called the police on me?" she hissed. Liam didn't even flinch. He simply crossed his arms. "You assaulted my daughter," he said coldly. "What did you think was going to happen?" "Oh, stop being ridiculous," Diana snapped. "I disciplined her. She was being disrespectful. She refused my gift." My hands tightened around Nora's sleeping form. "Gift?" She meant those filthy, tattered clothes. Before Liam could respond, another voice cut through the air. Thomas, his father. "Diana, stop talking," he said, stepping outside. "You've already done enough damage." That's when the flashing red and blue lights appeared down the street. Diana's face turned ghostly pale as the police car pulled up to the house. For the first time in her life, she wasn't the one in control. The red and blue lights cast harsh shadows on Diana's pale face as the police car rolled to a stop in front of the house. I held Nora close, feeling the steady rise and fall of her tiny chest against mine. She was asleep, unaware that justice was finally coming for the woman who hurt her. Diana stiffened as 2 uniformed officers stepped out. One was a woman with sharp eyes, the other a tall man with a calm but authoritative presence. "We received a report of child abuse at this residence," the male officer said, his voice firm but professional. Liam didn't hesitate. "That's correct. My mother, Diana, slapped my 5-year-old daughter across the face." Diana gasped, spinning toward him in fury. "I cannot believe you're doing this, Liam. I am your mother. You called the police on your own flesh and blood." Liam didn't even blink. "And you hit my daughter, Mom." His voice was cold and unwavering. "That's the only thing that matters." The female officer turned to Diana. "Ma'am, we need to ask you some questions. Please step inside." Diana crossed her arms, shaking her head. "This is ridiculous. I only disciplined her." She was acting spoiled and disrespectful. The officer didn't flinch. "You hit a child, ma'am. That is not discipline. That is assault." I could see Diana's confidence cracking, her shoulders tense as the weight of the situation finally started sinking in. As soon as the officers stepped into the house, Julia appeared from the living room, her face pale. She looked at Liam, then at me. "I'll give a statement," she said softly. "I saw everything." Diana whirled on her. "Julia, you're siding with them?" Julia swallowed hard, but didn't back down. "I'm siding with what's right." I felt an overwhelming wave of gratitude toward her. For the first time, she was standing up against her mother. One by one, other witnesses came forward. Even Thomas, Diana's husband, admitted to seeing the slap. The officers carefully noted every detail. The force of the slap. The way Diana humiliated Nora before doing it. The history of mistreatment Diana had toward my daughter. The case was building against her. Then, the female officer turned toward Liam and me. "Would you like to file an official charge for child abuse?" Liam didn't even hesitate. "Yes." Diana staggered back like he had slapped her. "Liam," she gasped, "you don't understand what you're doing." He turned to face her, his jaw set like stone.
No, Mum.
"For the first time, I understand perfectly." The officer nodded and wrote something in her notepad. "We'll also be notifying Child Protective Services. Given the nature of this case, there may be legal restrictions placed on your contact with your granddaughter." Diana gasped. "You can't do this to me." But no one defended her this time. The next few days were filled with legal battles, investigations, and consequences that my mother-in-law never thought she would face. She had always carried herself with an air of untouchable authority, controlling everyone around her through guilt and manipulation. But now, the world she had carefully built around her was collapsing brick by brick. The moment we pressed charges, everything moved quickly. The police gathered witness statements from everyone who had been present at the Christmas party. My sister-in-law, my father-in-law, and other family members confirmed what had happened. Even those who had previously turned a blind eye to her actions could no longer ignore the truth. Within 48 hours, my mother-in-law was formally charged with child endangerment and assault on a minor. Since it was a case of physical harm to a child, the law took it seriously. As the investigation continued, the court issued a restraining order, legally barring her from coming near my daughter. She was no longer allowed to visit, call, or make any contact. The woman who once demanded control over every aspect of our lives had suddenly lost all access to us. But that wasn't all. Word of the incident spread quickly throughout the community. Church members, neighbors, and old acquaintances heard about what she had done. People who had once admired her social status and respected her opinions now saw her for what she truly was. The whispers started. The invitation stopped. She lost her influence in the church, a place where she had once been a respected figure. The community that had once listened to her every word now avoided her. The perfect image she had worked so hard to maintain shattered overnight. She tried to fight the charges, hiring a lawyer and attempting to paint herself as the victim. She claimed that she had only been disciplining a child, that it had all been a misunderstanding. But with multiple witnesses testifying against her, she had no defense. In the end, the court sentenced her to 6 months of community service and mandatory anger management counseling. That was her punishment, to spend her time helping others, something she had never done willingly before. And just like that, the power she once held over us was gone. Months passed, and slowly, the weight that had been pressing down on our family lifted. For the first time in years, our home was peaceful. My daughter was thriving. She no longer flinched at loud voices or hesitated to speak her mind. The fear that had once lingered in her innocent eyes had faded. Instead, she smiled more often, her laughter filling the house without hesitation. And my husband? He never once wavered after that night. The man who had spent years trapped between loyalty to his mother and love for his own family had finally broken free. One evening, as we sat together after putting Nora to bed, he took my hand in his. His grip was strong, unwavering, just like his promise to us. "I should have protected you both sooner," he admitted, his voice low, filled with regret. "But I promise, Nina, I'll never fail you again." I looked at my husband, at the man who had once been afraid to stand up for us, now willing to do whatever it took to keep us safe. I looked at my daughter, peacefully sleeping, no longer carrying the burden of rejection and pain. And I looked at myself, a woman who had once endured silently but had finally fought back. As for my mother-in-law, she was no longer a shadow over our lives. We were free. If you found this story engaging and meaningful, don't forget to like this video. Leave a comment sharing your thoughts, and subscribe to the channel for more powerful stories. Your support helps us bring more impactful content your way. Thank you for watching.